Hey everybody, I wanted to take a minute and walk you through how I make the slingshots that I sell in my Etsy store, and I'll drop a link below for the shop, just in case you want to check them out. But if you want to make one yourself, this is how I do it. I have a stencil that I lay down, trace out, and then I start cutting that out. Let's go ahead and speed that up. I cut out 2 of these, and the reason that I cut 2 of them out is because I'm going to laminate them together, but you'll see that in just a minute. So take your time, get real close to the lines. You can do this with a coping saw, but I have a scroll saw, and I make a lot of them at one time, so this is just easier and faster. Now that that's done, you want to sand the faces of them, both faces on each one, so that they're smooth. You're going to lay them out. I just lay them out like this so that I can flip one over. Apply the glue. And this is Titebond 3 wood glue that I'm using. This is really good stuff. It's waterproof. It's a super strong glue. You want to make sure that you spread the glue over the entire face of each one of them. You don't want any dry spots. If you use too much glue, that's fine. It'll come off in the sanding and trimming. Just make sure that you have both of them, completely covered in the glue. If you have to add a little bit more, that's fine too. You can probably use other glue. I love Titebond 3. Once you have the glue on both of them, you're going to get you some fiberglass tape and lay it across it. This is just to help if by some crazy something happens, if one of the forks break off, this will keep it from coming back to you. This will actually hold it together. It is super strong stuff for it to just be fiberglass drywall tape. It is extremely stout. Lay them out. When you're looking at this, you want to make sure that the inside of the forks line up. Nothing else really matters all that much. Just the inside of the forks need to be smooth as possible. That'll save you a lot of sanding. Clamp it together, make sure that it's all even, and then let it dry. I typically let them dry for about 24 hours before I try to do any kind of work with them. Just take your time, make sure everything's lined up as good as it can be, but the inside of the forks, that's the critical one. Got everything lined up, just let it dry. 24 hours later, everything's dried up really good. We're going to go ahead and trim off the outside of the fiberglass tape. Just anything that's hanging off. Take a knife, cut it off. Now it's all cleaned off, we'll start on the sanding. This is a drum sanding pad that I have hooked into my lathe. This is how I clean up the inside of the forks. It actually works really, really well. I had a little bit that I made before, but this one's just great. I picked this up at the Harbor Freight. It's a little set of 4. And if you have a lathe, if you want to do this is like the fastest, easiest way. You can do it with sandpaper, you can do it with a Dremel. That's just the fastest. So right here I'm gonna grind the bevel on the front. This is simply aesthetic. This doesn't really, mess with the functionality of the slingshot, but it just makes it look good and kind of reduces some of the material on the tip of it, just so that there's not a whole lot to tie to. Afterward, once I have that profile done, I will start profiling the handle, and I'm trying to index this handle to fit the human hand extremely well. I went through quite a few pieces of wood trying to figure out exactly how to shape this handle to make it just feel good. You'll see, like I'm twisting and turning. I'm trying to get all those rough edges smoothed down. And you may want to find a different way. Whatever feels good in your hand, that's what you want. I prefer this because it's wide across the web from my thumb to my index finger, and it holds in there really well. Like I said, all hard corners, all hard edges, I try to knock them off except for the inside of the forks. Try to even up the top of the forks a little bit more too. Anything that was a little off in the glue up, now's the time to fix it. All I'm really doing is smoothing out the sides, getting all that excess glue off. That's why I said it doesn't matter if a little bit of glue runs out. You're gonna trim it all off. So don't sweat that too much. Make sure you have enough glue on there. That feels really good. Need to profile the back of it. That way it gives a little curve in for your finger to sit in, your index finger. And if you do get one of these slingshots from me, you'll see exactly what I mean. It makes all the difference for your hand to be able to wrap around it instead of just like holding a brick. I probably made 10 of these before I decided that this is the shape that I wanted. On a side note, if you like the voiceover, let me know. If not, let me know so that I know to either do these when it rains or never do this again. When it rains on the shed and it's just beating down, it's pretty loud in here. You can't really hear anything. So now I'm going to start contouring the actual, the bottom grip of the handle. Not right, this is where the other 3 fingers will sit. It's been a good sander. It's an old one, but it's been a good one. There we go. Keep going. I didn't want to speed any of this part up. I wanted you guys to be able to see where the contours are going. Actually be able to look at them and tell what I'm doing instead of it just flying through it. You can skip around as much as you want. At the end of the video, I'll put a timestamp right here. At the end of the video, it's just me shooting this slingshot after it's done. It's actually pretty cool. Take out some cans. But you can see how the grip's it's kind of evolving. It's no longer a block. It still has some blocky parts though, so we're still working on it. But you can see that it's rounding over, and you can actually see how it will separate your fingers on the grip to spread your hand out to hold it like really well. That feels pretty good right there. Still got a little bit to take off any of the hard spots, but it's getting there. You see the little sharp corners? We're going to get rid of all of those. I've made quite a few of these, and I've gotten it down. It takes me probably about 45 minutes to do all the sanding, and once all the sanding's done, it really turns out to be a really smooth, just beautiful piece. Knock any of those hard edges off. Don't want anything eating into your hand. You want it to be just super comfortable. That looks a lot better. Got one little spot up here. Take care of that. Just double check the whole piece before you move on. Anything you don't like, fix it up now. There, that's better. So now that the rough sanding's done, we'll go to the hand sanding. And I usually start with about 120 grit because that's what's on the belt. So I'll come back with some hand sanding about 120 grit, and then I'll jump from the 120 grit to 200 and what is it, 240 grit, something like that. That's about as high as I go with it though. 120 would probably work out fine if you just have 120 grit. That would probably work out fine, but just extra that way. Make sure you get all the corners again. By the time you finish here, it should already be really smooth. Depending on your profile, of course, you may have some sharp edges. I don't like sharp edges. So we're gonna knock all of those off. That feels good. So stupid me, forgot to drill the hole for the lanyard. I usually do that right after I glue it up. Once the glue's set and everything's still a square block, I'll drill it then. This one didn't work out that way, but I was able to drill the hole and it was nice and even. Still looks really good. But word to the wise, do this right after your glue's dry. I just like to feel it, check it every time. So now I'm gonna cut in the grooves, and I do this with a chainsaw file. Just take your time on this. Make sure that everything lines up. I'll go from the front to the side. I usually do the other side and then the back, just to make sure everything's running in a good straight line. After you do both sides, then you want to seal your wood. I'm using natural Danish oil. Really brings out the grain of the wood and the natural colors. It's just, I prefer natural wood. If I don't have to stain it, I'm not gonna. You see that Danish oil really pops that grain. What I really like to do is let this coat dry for a day. Come back, do some light sanding on it with some very fine grit sandpaper. Usually like 1,000 grit, very fine grit sandpaper, and then coat it again, and once again let it dry. So to get inside that lanyard hole, I just use these little cups. It's great being a dad because pudding and jello cups make perfect cups for this. Dip it in there, let it run through real good, and then wipe off any excess. When you set it up to dry, the rest will drip out. Just beautiful grain in this piece of wood. It's amazing what that Danish oil does. So after it's dry, we'll start putting the band on, and I'll show you guys how to make a band later. And I'll even show you how to tie them on, like step by step how to tie them on in a later video. If you've made it to this point in the video, I'd like to say thanks. Thanks for watching. If you wouldn't mind, hit the like and subscribe. You know how this goes. It's free, but it's awesome. It helps me out a lot. And check out any of the other videos and any new ones that are coming up. So I would really appreciate it. So once you get it wrapped around real good, you just want to kind of tuck that up under your thumb and let it roll off. And I personally, well, got my fat fingers, but I like to pull that tag in the rest of the way through. You don't have to, but just my preference. I like to pull that tag in the rest of the way out and tie it off with the other tag in that's hanging. That's just a little added security, making sure that it won't come unraveled. I just do a few overhand knots, square knots, I'm sorry, not overhand, square knots. The overhand knot comes later with the lanyard. That secures it on there pretty well. Once you have it tied off, just clip it. Make sure everything's good and tight. Then do the other side the same way. If you made it this far in the video, if you wouldn't mind leaving a comment, just leave something crazy like pudding cup, and that way everybody that gets on the video and they see pudding cup and they're wondering, you know, what the hell are they talking about, pudding cup? I think that would be really funny. Just tie this one off the same way. Like 1.5 square knots, 2 square knots at the most. You don't want a knob sticking out the side of it. You kind of want it to blend in with it, but it really does help keep that banding from coming unraveled. I've never had one come unraveled on me, but I can only imagine holding a very strong band stretched out close to your face and the end of it coming undone and slapping the crap out of you. That would not be cool. It is so hard to tie things like this. All right, once again, clip the tag ends off, and that part is done. Now, let's put a lanyard on it. We can call this a complete project and try to get some shooting done before it gets too dark. This is where the overhand knot comes into play. Line them up. One overhand knot should do it. If you want to tie two, if you want to tie some fancy knot, hey, this is your project. Do whatever you want. One overhand knot works great. Beautiful. Simply beautiful. Before you shoot, always test your bands. As you can see, you're going to be holding it right there at your face. So make sure every time you shoot that you test your bands, check them for any cracking. Looks good, let's shoot. This is not editing magic. It's just that good. Thing is accurate. With these, you're going to aim with the groove that you cut to tie your band to the slingshot. It's like an iron sight. All right, guys. Had a lot of fun making this. Turns out to be just a functional piece of art right here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you later.